on trail. It's generally something that has to do with your personality or something that may have happened to you while on trail. So I'm Ned Wolf, but I go by Fireballs on the trail.
My name is Emma Schneider, and I go by Spamalicious on the trail.
I'm Michael Glover, and I'm Frodo on trail.
Evan Heyer, and I was Ghost.
Yeah, so we are going to get started, and a big thanks to
Curtis.
for helping us.
Thanks, Curtis.
So yeah, whenever you
So we wanted to start with just asking who here has heard about the Pacific Crest Trail or the sport of thru hiking. Anybody have? Yeah, it's just basically where you decide to take a really long walk for a few months. And our trail of choice this summer was the Pacific Crest. We all went northbound, so we started at the Mexican border outside of San Diego and walked up to just outside of Vancouver. So the mileage changes year to year depending on reroutes and fires and all kinds of things. This year the trail was 2,653 miles. As you can see, lots of elevation gain and loss. Trail is designed around different land managed by the Bureau of Land Management, the National Forest Service, National Park Service, and private owners. So it's just a collection different kinds of land, all beautiful, of course, and then, yeah, the trail came around in the 1930s, and then it was an act of Congress in 1968 declared it a National Scenic Trail. There's lots of them. The PCT is one of the best, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's just kind of what the PCT is.
and so we found this video that another thru hiker, her name is Tip Tap, created just a day before we met for the first time, and it's just a beautiful way to just capture life on the trail. And so we are going to show it in two different parts. We did ask if it was okay, and she was honored that we are sharing it, so it's an honor to share it with you as well. Hopefully it works.
Did you make through the internet?
I did.
Me, and we are going. Oh my god! I am on the Pacific Crest Trail. They say your first thru hike is like your first love. Higher than the birds up in the trees, further than the human eye can see. Oh, it goes off like a time bomb when we are near. Continues to explore without any fear. And every day that passes by feels more like home as we watch our love grow. We dive into the unknown, carefree, innocent to what lies ahead. And life suddenly makes sense. Running through the trees and get ahead of you, and nature sits me. It's wider than the snow, crisper than the air that I breathe. Hi, I'm Eleanor, and in 2019 I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. For those who don't know, it's the trail that starts at the Mexican border in Southern California. It goes up through California, Oregon, and Washington into Canada. 4,270 kilometers in length. Yes, kilometers because I'm from New Zealand. It took me 137 days to complete. It's about 4.5 months of living out on the trail. But there's a lot more to it than walking in nature.
So that's a really great segue, is that we like to think, or some people get it in their heads, that thru hiking is just this really prestigious or almost impossible endeavor. And we kind of talked about, we wanted to bust some myths to make a trail accessible to almost anyone. And so we put together some myths. We're going to talk about it with you all.
first one I wanted to discuss is the idea that you have to be like an incredibly fit person to start a thru hike. And thankfully that's not true. It's definitely something that puts everybody on the same level of like discomfort and like unfamiliarity and just physical like hardship. So if you were like thinking I'd love to hike for 5 months or a month or like whatever's like a big trip in your mind and you're afraid that it like might be just too much, like it really is quite doable. It's all about like reading your body at first, you know, like which pain is the good pain, which pain is the oh I'm getting injured pain, you know, like cause there's all kinds of things that kind of help determine what is going to make it a successful hike physically. And then it also has a lot to do with like mental toughness is more important than like that physical readiness or fitness, because I mean it's hard for anybody to like become increasingly more fit, and I think every hiker here and on trail can testify to like a ton of pain at first or in different sections, but like it really does go away. Like it gets better and you like are having such an amazing time. The whole like the payoff is so satisfying. So mentally it's so it's just a very compelling like. Just if you're mentally tough and like able to persist, it really does work out. And if you've like trained already in that way for like a different athletic event or like any like thing you've had to persevere through, it helps and is very accessible. But yeah, mental toughness has a lot to do with my next slide and the next myth I want to talk about. Oh yeah, that was all. Yeah, that was that. Heck yeah, thanks Curtis. All right. But then the next myth I want to discuss is that through hiking is like a fix your life gimmick. You can switch. Thank you so much. It's kind of a cliche on trail that like people who through hike are doing it for like personal like internal reasons, and then some people are just kind of out to have it. It's like so fascinating to meet everybody on trail and find out where they're coming from, what their reasons are. You can switch, Curtis. Thank you. And like the beautiful part of a through hike is that it is a very special environment for an extended amount of time, and where your mind goes in that time is kind of wonderful. There's different ways to cope with like the boredom, because let's face it, it gets boring, or like just the way that the community and the beauty is affecting you. I think every through hiker has like a takeaway, like the thing they learned on that trail and that hike. People who've done multiple long trails around the world will kind of like have these like almost like trophies of like just things that they learned or came to conclusions about. So like one of mine this summer is definitely like learning how to be more fearless about like doable things. Like the world has really opened to me in ways that it wasn't open to me before. Just realizing like things that I'm capable of physically and the way that people around me are capable of supporting, and just like that exchange and that growth. So I think it's completely worth doing just for those reasons. It won't like make all your problems go away and whatever. Like you just have to heal from past difficulties and like come back to like the home that may be iffy or like all kinds of things. But like in and of itself, it's really worth doing for like, again, the physical reasons I talked about, but also just like the mental space you get to be in for that time.
The next myth is that you need to have technical outdoor skills and knowledge. And I just want to start by saying I don't think any of us had technical skills. Maybe you probably the most, but the three of us for sure not, let alone any mountaineering experience or skills. I think people think in order to do the entire trail you have to really know what you're doing. And the truth is you kind of just pick it up as you go. You learn from other people who've been before you, and you work with people. You go to the next slide. So I think the three most important things to have, if, outside of the experience and knowledge, is mental toughness, believing in yourself, and the second one would be having a good support system, like a team. People that you trust, people that you agree to do the difficult sections with, the technical sections with, like river crossings and mountain passes. And I would say, so these two videos up here are some of the most technical parts of the whole trail. The one on the left is Forester Pass. It's the highest point on the trail. And the other one is called Mather Pass. And that is one of the most technical, like, rock climbing sections or mountain passes in the entire trail. And I just want to say, like, you don't need to have the technical experience, but believing in yourself to get over these things is important. Know your limits as well. So the reason that this gruesome photo is here is this is an example of kind of pushing, just to show you that it can be a little bit dangerous and you can get hurt, but knowing your limits and not going past them, it is a smart thing to have. So I don't know if you want to say anything more. This is actually
So that's me.
legs.
And I just wanted to throw that up there as like it is very doable, and I don't think that there's any reason why anyone shouldn't try. But I think it is also one of those things like you have to use common sense. And in this specific example, I was sliding down a hill in shorts, and when you're on icy snow, it doesn't mix very well. So it's definitely doable, but you still need to bring half a brain with you.
And this is an example of where I left my brain at the top of the pass. I had all of the gears, or the gear, and the knowledge how to use it, and I just got really lost in the moment, and this is what happened. So it looks like a fun slide, and it certainly was, but proper form is to use your ice axe and put it in the snow and not use it as like a imaginary paddle. So we all slip up, but luckily I had a great group of people supporting me at the bottom, and we kind of said like, what the heck just happened? And we went over the things I could have done better, and then I did.
Like the sand start with this one, I think we're all going to touch on this a little bit, but just the idea that it may take years of planning, and this specific example is my plan for Washington, and I literally drew that up in probably 30 minutes, maybe like 30 miles from the Washington border, so very last minute, and it worked quite well. But yeah, if you go to the next slide, I think we'll all touch on it. But as far as prep work for the whole trail in itself, just amongst us all four of us completed the trail, and we took, depending on who it was, it took from 1.5 months of like prep work and before, at least from deciding to do the trail that summer to actually getting out there to from like 1.5 months to 6 years. So it just goes to show that you can put as much into the planning and effort as you want, but you can also get by with minimal prep.
Yes, another myth is that you need to have the best gear. Through my experience, I saw people with the top of the line just about everything, and then I also met some people who were using garbage bags as rain gear. So I think the important thing is that you need to have the gear, because I also come across people who didn't have a tent and just kind of winged it, and they didn't have a great time. So you can go to the next slide. Honestly, anything from like this picture here is a $3.50 rain. It's a poncho, and a little bit of duct tape on there goes a long way. But that actually worked better than the rain jacket that I was using, because it's impermeable. Those gloves, those are just rubber gloves with insulation in them, and those were enough to keep hands warm in the snow, in the cold, below freezing temperatures. You don't need to have like a technical water system necessarily. You don't need a hydro pack. Most of the people, probably 90% of the people, use a smart water bottle. They're great because they're durable. You can get a liter of water in them, and you can get them at a gas station or grocery store, just about anywhere.
They're very lightweight.
As far as like shoes go, you don't need a top of the line, although they'd be probably great. Really expensive hiking boot. Most people use like a trail runner, something like I'm wearing right here. They're really lightweight. They're breathable. They dry out quickly. You don't have to break them in. I went through 6 pairs of them, but I would do, if I did it again, I would wear trail runners again. You get hit with all types of weather, unexpected. I had a 3-season tent, and we got slammed with like over a foot of snow the last 2 days of the trail. And we made the tent work. You probably wouldn't want to go for, you know, a couple of weeks with a 3-season tent, but you can make it work.
Can I speak?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So something too, I had a sleeping pad that isn't really meant for cold weather, but I brought it because of convenience, and we found one of those car like insulation shiny tinfoil things that help regulate your car's temperature, and I used that underneath my sleeping pad, and it helped pretty significantly, I would say. So you can make it work on the fly too.
That's a good idea.
So I think before I started, I had this idea that everywhere I turned, I was going to be caught off guard by beauty. And the trail allowed me and kind of taught me that my expectations of beauty versus the reality of what could be beautiful were kind of altered or just different. You do get views like this, which, you know, aren't super beautiful, and you can change it.
What was that?
You can go back. So
Sorry.
that's like an underpass,
Oh, so
under
you're
like
just passing
a
under a
major
road. Yeah.
highway.
Interstate 80, maybe?
Maybe I-80, I-5,
Probably.
yeah. And so sometimes we would expect to see these magnificent views, but if you look to the lower right corner, or I guess your lower left, we didn't see a whole lot, but that was okay because sometimes the clouds would part, and even the clouds in of themselves would be gorgeous, and we'd see this beautiful mountain landscape that was hiding behind those clouds. Sometimes we would see different types of scat or poop and drawings in the dirt, and sometimes we would see, you know, beautiful artwork under the bridge. So it really changes your perception of what is beautiful. Change it. And then we really were treated to some beautiful views. Of course, we were hiking and we were just in a cloud for days and days, and finally we got high enough where we were above the clouds. And so beautiful views are everywhere. You just have to know where to look, and you have to kind of be open to the different forms of beauty.
I think this might have been another one that we were all going to speak on. Yeah, I guess to start this one out, I guess all of us were kind of blown away by how much support we got on the trail, and just the willingness people were wanting to provide to help us in many ways to complete the trail. Feel free to go to the next one. And so there's these people called Trail Angels who, out of the goodness of their hearts, offer their services, whether that's rides to and from trail, or food, or shelter, all of the above. Like the picture here on the bottom left is from Agua Dulce. There's a women's club in this small town, and they, as a fundraiser, excuse me, went through the town, and all the townspeople bought meal tickets for the hikers, and they then provided this meal to us. And there was over, I think, like 75 people that they served meals to, which was pretty remarkable. I don't know if you guys want to speak to the other.
Yeah, like you don't expect anyone to help you out when you're in a town, because honestly, you look like you're homeless. And it's amazing the people that you see that come out of the middle of nowhere. I've had meals bought for me, and I didn't even know who bought the meal, just because they could see my pack, and I was in a restaurant, and they knew I was a PCT thru hiker. So it really, like for me, it restored a lot of like faith, and just there are some good people out there. And, it was like that the whole way. Like consistently, you'd get trail magic. That's what it's called. I don't know if you guys have any other things to share with that.
I think for me it was just the people that we encountered on the actual trail. Like sometimes I would come across people going the opposite way, and they would say, "Can I give you a cookie? Can I give you some candy?" Or, "Wow, you're so amazing, keep going." One person, as we passed, just said, like, "May the wind be at your back," the whole time. So just kind, like, in the moment, awesome people that, you know, they could just smile and say hi or just walk past me, but they took the time to kind of show their amazement, which I guess in turns made me feel like, oh, I guess I am doing something kind of significant.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Just you're on trail for so much time that it's just fun from like different road crossings and towns to come across things at just the right moment. Like that photo with the Oreos and everything. That was like one of the hardest days on trail for me. But we got to this guy. His name was Coach. He was a thru hiker last year. He came back to like pay it forward. You know, all the kindness he had received during his hike. He was like, "I want to do that for you guys now in the class of 2019." It was like perfect timing. You know, this like wonderful rest and snack and like real coffee, you know, just like all these things. Part of the beauty of trail is that little things become so much more special. So I always have had a taste for Oreos, but on trail I really had it's just so fun, like how like attuned you become to like the pleasures of life. And that's a mindset that's like residual now at home too, which I'm so thankful for. So it's hard, you know, kind of being back at home where like that understanding, like the world is a nasty place, is like the overarching, you know, be careful, don't talk to strangers, it's dangerous, especially like as a woman. So like being on trail where like the vibes are just kind of purely good all the time, like maybe there's a marginal time when it's not, and obviously pay attention, but like just such a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere to exist in together with strangers who become very good friends.
And one other thing I want to add is there are certain, like when getting to and from town, and specifically hikers rely a lot on the goodness of others, and I think there's a bit of a humbling factor of like when you are needing to put yourself out there and you are truly dependent on the goodness of someone else to get you to and from town, it is an experience unlike that I've had off trail. And so like you will be alone on the trail, like is you know thousands of miles of trail, but feel free to go to the next slide. You'll find that it's actually quite populated. I guess my one of my expectations was, you know, I'd be out in these backcountry areas and I'd be fairly isolated. But I quickly came to learn that, like this picture again on the bottom left, like that wasn't even everyone that started on that day, but that was at that one like 30-minute window when I was at the terminus. I was starting with 30 other people, and then the PCTA is the organization that hands out permits for the trail. So anyone who is hiking more than 500 miles gets a permit through them. And this year they gave out over 6,000 permits. So, I mean, which is huge. And that combined with the fact that like year after year people have done it, and that's, I guess, just the thru hiker piece, but there's also people who do smaller sections who are getting permits through other permitting agencies. And so, yeah.
You said 6,000 start roughly.
How
many finish?
I don't know that I've seen the numbers for this year.
They come out later this month. Or in a given, I mean.
Yeah, it depends on like how much snow
Conditions,
there is, the
fires.
conditions.
Yeah.
I've heard like, I don't know, between like 20 to 40 people finish out of everyone, and that's like, that's like
20 to 40%.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
The survivors.
Yeah. And again, that really depends. Like this year was a high snow year, and so a lot of people skipped or flipped or got off
What's
the trail.
that?
I'm sorry.
Skipping and flipping.
Yep. So skipping means like, oh, like I'm going to skip over a section of trail and go to another section. And then flipping might mean, okay, I'm going to skip over the section of trail and then hike like southbound, or if you're going south, then hike northbound.
Like flipping your
Just do it out of
direction.
order.
Yeah. And there's different like mindsets behind that. Some it's like snow avoidance. Other times it's like logistical things. like visitors to trail, for example. There's all kinds of reasons to like flip or skip, but it all kind of works out in the end. You know, people just kind of figure out what they want from the hike and how they're gonna manage that.
Yeah, as well, it can be as social or as, I guess, non-social as you make. I know that there were like some days where I just was overwhelmed with people, and so I just said like I'm going to leave an hour earlier, and then I'd have alone time, and then if I got lonely, I would just stop at a nice break spot and wait for people to catch up. And I will say that all 4 of us started alone, so we didn't start with anyone. We didn't start together. Oh, except him. Yeah.
But just with one.
Yeah.
Another point I wanted to make before we get to the movie is towns also tend to shake people up and groups up. Well, I guess 2 points. One is oftentimes because there's so many people on the trail, you would end up like camping or eating lunch with the same people, and like little groups would form, which became trail families. And some trail families were really tight knit and kept together from the very beginning all the way to the end. For myself, I kind of had like 3 different groups that I went with, and which brings me kind of to my next point of towns, which would kind of shake people up. Because you'd get into town, or you'd be hiking, and you'd be around the same people for a few days. You get to town, and depending on how much time you had to spend there, whether you're staying the night, if how much time you spent in town, you would then leave, and you'd often end up around a different group of people, new faces, new people to meet, unless you like made a dedicated effort to leave town at the same time. And so, yeah, you can, like Emma was saying, it can be as isolating as you want, but there are lots of people out there, and so it can be a very social aspect. And I would say for all of us, it was the people that really made the trip.
That being said, I wanted to show you a little clip of this video.
Provided the help can figure it out.
But there's an old Māori proverb that encapsulates what I'm most grateful for. It asks, what is the most important thing in the world? He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It is the people, it is the people, it is the people.
We're here to welcome you. So I just want to say congratulations, you guys.
The Pacific Crest Trail, 4,270 kilometers in length. A trail that gave me 137 days to work towards this one tangible goal of reaching Canada. When the idea got into my head, it crept its way into my heart and wouldn't let go. So I had to.
Coconut oil in it. It's like instant joy. It's so fun how like all these little items become sources of like pleasure and comfort in a beautiful place with people you really care about. It's just like this wonderful conglomeration. So again, there's so many like good memories attached to all these objects now, and the gear is just one of the really fun parts of planning and preparing, in my opinion.
on that note, one of the things I was looking forward to was like learning what works for me as far as gear and what doesn't. And so mine, similar to Ned's, turned out to be the sun shirt. Quickly, there's probably by day 3 I was sick of sunscreen because you have to put it on like at least 3 times a day. Otherwise you end up just getting burned, and having to only cover my face those 3 times was such a huge relief. And yeah, it just turned out to be my favorite piece of gear.
Tell about the stencil.
Oh yeah, and then the stencil, there was some trail magic at Walker Pass around mile 600 or so, and there was a guy who had done it a few years ago, and he came.
CT and any long trail is like getting to town. Obviously, trail's pretty remote depending on the certain section. So, like Evan was discussing, like relying on the kindness of strangers, just sticking your thumb out and hoping for the best. And I think we all have, different instances of like successful hitches and less successful hitches. But we can just go through and kind of discuss what it's like to rely on a stranger to bring you a place, which is highly not recommended in all other areas of life.
I'll say that this is probably the biggest part of through hiking that I was most like nervous about, and had kind of my guard up for most of the trail. And so although 10 out of 10 of my experiences were positive, I still never hitched by myself, and that's just my personal preference. I just made sure I hitched with a group of people, which is really doable, just to find someone and be like, hey, we're going to town tomorrow together, like, can we hitch in? Or again, just like waiting right before a main road for some hiker to meet you. But I was never in a bad situation, and I'm pretty fortunate, and I think I'll let the other 3 speak to this, but I don't think anyone else was in a sketchy situation. Tell the dog story.
Yeah, so there's 2 people in the back, in the top right photo. There's 2 hikers in the back, and this is a Cooper Mini. They made it maybe like 20 feet before they decided it wasn't going to work the rest of the way to town. But there was a couple who had brought their neighbors in the back seat with the dog. And then they tried to squeeze 2 hikers and 2 backpacks with a full trunk and 2 puppies, small little puppies. And so it's like, I think that it's a testament to the woman who was driving, who was willing to try and make that work, but also the fact that you take what you can get, so like I've had multiple rides in different vehicles, like from the Cooper to the back of a truck to a Tesla. It kind of runs the gambit of the different pitching experiences you can have.
Yeah, there was never a time where I wasn't able to get a hitch. You just, I don't know, put yourself out there, you smile, wave at everybody, even if they pass you, just give them a smile and a wave. And you can even offer, show what you can offer them, like a bag of McDonald's and jars of ice cream. Anything you can do to make yourself stand out and show that you're a nice person. Yeah, it's good.
This didn't happen to me, but I met quite a few trail friends that their hitch turned into, where are you going? And often it's, we're not sure yet. And so then it kind of turned into, well, like, can I make you dinner? You can stay at my house and do laundry, shower, spend the night. And so, like, what could start out as a hitch could really be some amazing kindness from, again, strangers who are just generously opening their space for us stinky hikers to feel comforted.
I would also
Did you hear any bad stories as outcomes?
Honestly, not really. Like, before I started, I think there's like a ton of web resources and a lot of like Facebook groups, and as a for me, I wrote like, okay, what's it like for women particularly to hitchhike, and I heard nothing but great stories. I mean, again, it's kind of those things to like also trust your gut if you get a bad feeling. I know whenever I'd get into a car, I'd check the license plate, and I would like text my mom the license plate information, just so like someone else is like kind of in the radar. So.
So you enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't think that I heard of anyone having a bad experience. I'm sure
Kind of like again affirming the world is scary. Like always use your head, obviously, but it's like so much better out there than a lot of I think people would have you believe. Kind of like less fear is my new like mindset toward generally everywhere. So.
Actually, I remember what I was going to say. I think, like, hitchhiking just in Minneapolis, not around a well-known trail, is probably a different experience. Like, people know if you're around a town that's close to the trail, people are generally aware if they see a backpack that, oh, that's probably a PCT hiker. So it's probably a different experience than just going to get a hitch anywhere in the world. But
Well, I just wanna say, if someone was hitchhiking in Minneapolis and looked like you guys did, I would not stop my car. Maybe out there I would, right?
It was actually really funny. Once I was hitching, and a woman, she like pulled off to the side of the road. I was like, I got a ride, awesome. And I like walk up to her car, and I'm like, hey, and she's like, why are you here? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like it was, yeah, she was very much terrified. I scared her. And then I was like,
But you probably look different than
Yeah.
then than you do now. Smelled different.
I think this is just a slide of just like silly or funny things that we got from the trail that we noticed, either like signs or someone, I don't know, Evan, if you want to explain the
This
bottom
is-
left corner, but
It was just early on in the trip. There was a guy from Switzerland, or a gal, I guess I never met them, but just noticed, they were, part of their trip was recording how many times they had farted on the trail. There's a bunch of like little quirky things that you come across along the trail, especially in Oregon. One of the fun parts of Oregon is that the trail blazes that mark the trail so you know where you're going. A bunch of them have been written on with bad puns or silly jokes. But it was one of the things that was kind of enjoyable and kept you
actually
yeah,
some of
kept
them
you
were
engaged.
motivating. It's like
Yeah.
on a large uphill, it's like you're almost there.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
can. You did it, good job.
yeah, it's so cute. Yeah.
Is that a llama? Or
Might be an
That might be an alpaca.
Oh,
I was
okay, I
don't know the difference.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
That also happened to be in Oregon, so Oregon's doing a great job at keeping it weird. It had a bridle on it, so I'm assuming it just escaped from someone's farm or something. But it was just cruising down the trail. Definitely took us off guard.
This is just a list of stuff that we kind of referenced for preparing this. We all prepared for our hikes in generally the same ways. There's like a few like standbys that all hikers kind of use. But if you want like more information, we'd love to chat more with you about it or point you in the right direction to learn more about the PCT or through hiking. Thanks.
And I think the rest. Oh,
Did you have a question?
Food. Did you all cook or?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's food is obviously like so important. You're supposed to be taking in like, thousands and thousands and thousands of calories, and finding ways to carry that much food without breaking your back and like needing even more food. Like that like balance is something that every hiker it's a formula we're all working on the whole trail. And like deciding how many days to carry at a given time or how to resupply. I think we all kind of had different strategies for that.
yeah. So I started the trail without a stove, and I cold soaked all my food, so that could look like 30 minutes before I wanted to eat. I would put water in my dry ramen and then set up my camp, and then eat cold ramen, cold mashed potatoes, cold couscous. When I got into the Sierras, I brought a stove because I just didn't want to be cold after a long day. And I quickly decided that the cold soak life was not for me. And, you know, even in the morning having hot coffee just could set, like me personally, on the right mindset to have a great day. And that became a luxury item for me. There are people that after the Sierras decide to shed some weight, and so sometimes the stove is the thing to go. I think we kind of just wanted to open it up for questions. So these are some things that we have to kind of get the wheels turning. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to just, yeah.
How many days for each of you?
That was 150 days. I started May 1st and I finished September 28th.
I was also 150 days, I think. I started April 30th and I ended September 26th.
Not sure what the day count was.
It was 167.
Thank you, Dad. It was 167. So I started the 19th of April and finished the 2nd of October.
I guess I'd fall in between. I started the 17th of April and ended on the 26th of September. Definitely not as fast as Tip Tap.
Tip Tap went fast.
She was cruising.
And that's
Here's a
the thing,
question.
sometimes we would meet a group of people in town and just never see them again and find out that they're 3 weeks or 2 weeks ahead because they're just doing 30 to 40 miles every day and not taking a lot of time in towns. Or kind of the flip side, there are people that took 6 months to 8 months because they took a lot of time off or they kind of skipped around the trail and yeah, it took some time.
I saw a lot of young people on the trail. Did you run into many people who are over 50?
I did.
Yeah,
I
I did.
on my
I mean,
last-
many, like, like one or 10 or like
I ran
half.
into a few. I hiked with a few for a while. The most impressive, I would say, was a 73-year-old man that I met on my second to last day, who was finishing his third Triple Crown, which is he's done the PCT 3 times and he's also done the other 2 long distance trails 3 times, and he completed all those. He started his first through hike when he was 50. So in 23 years, he had done 6 through or 9 through hikes. As a 73-year-old man, it's pretty impressive.
On that point, I'm 35 and I actually honestly felt like I fell in this gap where it was either people who were like 10 years younger than me or like 20 years older, and so there was kind of this like early retirement kind of group to like a little later, or like people like fresh out of college, and I guess that was kind of my experience of like the 2 kind of bubbles of people that I ran into the most.
I also, on the extreme other end, I met a 15-year-old who was hiking solo, and
Is that legal?
and it was his
But
second.
really, come on!
He was on his second through hike.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was an impressive person. He actually didn't go to school. He owned his own backpacking company as a 15-year-old and was out there all alone. A really impressive person.
There were also
You
Is that
all
the guy
walks
who's
of life.
making his own bags?
Yeah. Yes.
There were also a couple family groups, so like little kids to like parents as well. So yeah, it really felt like a trail that, again, if you commit to the idea of doing it and you prepare for it, whatever it means to you, it's really accessible.
Was it hard to find places to camp for the night? That, I mean, I think I read a book on Appalachian Trail, and they have places where you go and that's where you sleep for the night, but at the Pacific Crest, it doesn't seem like that's the case. You kind of walk in, you're like, oh, here's a place that's flat and not too many rocks.
I think that it is definitely much more the case than on the Appalachian Trail, and it does, I would say it depends on where you are, because some of the national parks and national forests are much stricter on the camping requirements. And on the resources page, we mentioned, at the very bottom, we mentioned Gut Hook, which is a map app that most hikers use nowadays, and that is for me, that's where I've found most of my camping sites through that, because you can see not only where there's camping sites, but people are able to comment, and so you can get a heads up as far as like how much space there is it close to water, are the bugs bad, and so that was super useful. But I think, yes, and compared to the Appalachian Trail, it's far less of a concern of like, I mean, there are designated campsites, but there are also lots of places, especially in the desert, where you just pull up on a flat piece of ground.
Kind of that being said, like it was really important for all of us to look at the leave no trace principles, to know like if there's a beautiful flat area that also has flowers there, to not lay on top of them, or if there's a beautiful creek, to make sure that you're a certain distance away from like pretty much any water source. I saw a hint back there.
How much money did you guys all like save to like do this? Like, what's a good range?
Yeah, so from some of the research that I did, people said like the average like to budget for was $1,000 a month while on trail. So it's kind of the middle of the road. You can do less, you can do more. I think depending if you want to stay in hotels in towns, that's obviously more expensive than staying in a hostel or staying at a public campground.
Yeah, it's kind of like lodging is the big expense. Hikers often will like room together. It can be frowned upon at times, but most towns are pretty down to have like many hikers share a room, split the costs. It could be food too. I mean, the thing with the food on trail is that many of those small mountain towns, it costs a lot of money to get the food there, so it is pretty jacked up in price. So it's kind of like a question, like, do I want to like mail myself food and save money, or do I want to like support this small town for which trail is like its source of like income, and it was often simpler and happier to like opt for that for me. I liked buying my food on trail. So that's one thing. And then like gear replacement, it's always good to like allot some money for like when things crap out and you need a new sleeping pad or stove, whatever it may be. And then just like airfare, obviously, plane tickets, things like that.
I think a nice way to think about it is if you compare it to like a vacation, like a 5-month vacation, like a normal vacation, $5,000 is pretty affordable. So it's a pretty cheap way to live, because you really only have to worry about the bare minimum necessities. And you can spend, I mean, yeah, I don't know, there's people who probably spend closer to $10,000, but you definitely don't need to, and you can spend a lot less too.
So like, what was your guys' main reasons for like wanting to do the whole entire hike?
For me, I just really love being outdoors. It was as simple as that. I took up running a few years ago just because I wanted to be outdoors year round in Minnesota, and it's too cold to hold still, so it's like, I'll just start running. And so trail was like an extension of that. Like I just want to go be outside. Just living outdoors was really satisfying for me. The physical test was wonderful, and then just the surroundings, and be able to see so much. Like I had never been to California before this, and just getting to like meet it in that way was such a special gift.
Yeah, I think for me, I've been really fortunate in that I've gotten to do different backpacking trips or do different forms of adventure, but this was kind of like the next step of my like adventure life, and so it was just the challenge of it. Like my purpose was to finish the trail. That's like the challenge, the goal, and something that I learned about myself is that I'm extremely goal oriented. I would suffer like any time if it meant to complete a goal, but that could be so different from other people's purpose. Like a lot of people that I met, like their primary reason for doing it and doing it all was to have fun and to enjoy it. So that's the really cool thing about trail is people do it for all different reasons. People complete it for all different reasons.
Yeah. I think for me, the motivation was to do something different. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and unhappy with what I was doing for work. And I'd lived in Minnesota my entire life, never really branched out or done anything like this. So for me, it was just change.
For me, I worked retail, and after spending so many summers stuck inside, it was really a full-blown desire to get out and disconnect for after being stuck inside for so many hours and like missing those summer months, and also just to kind of push to commit myself to such a large task, and then to see myself through it was also like another kind of goal, I guess.
I would just love to hear like your highlight, low light, and what you're gonna do now. Like next, like what's your next adventure? if you have that planned.
Those are hard questions.
Sorry.
So much
highlight,
experience.
a low light.
Still. Yeah, no,
Just
that's
curious.
it's a good question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. I'll
Go
just
ahead.
go at my highlight and low light are pretty much the same thing. This is what just comes to the top of my head.
Yeah.
So it was a day in Washington, and it just like rained the entire day. It started out as this nice little mist. I was like, oh, this is cool. We can still walk and wear no rain gear. And then over time, it just got steadier and steadily more strong. And then it got colder, and then we couldn't see any views. And so I just got so grumpy. And I was like, this really sucks. We're so close to the end. I just want to see some views. I want to have nice weather. And I felt like I was just really disappointed, which I felt sad for feeling disappointed in the weather. But I think kind of a high point to that was I just decided to entertain myself and entertain Evan with or without his permission. I just started singing every song I knew, and then it made me laugh and chuckle to myself I'm ridiculous right now. And then eventually it stopped raining and we got down to a beautiful green forest, and it was again the opportunity to see the beauty, even though earlier that day I was really angry about it. And I think the experience for what's next, I've just decided that whatever is next will be intentional. There are things that I don't want to do now that I'm back, and I'm letting myself be stubborn and say no to opportunities or no to things I should be doing. So right now I'm working in a bookstore, and I'm working here, and this is where I want to be.
Who wants to go next?
Well, with our last few seconds, I'll just say my highlight was the people, just the wonderful humans I got to meet, and then just the mountains. Also the low light too, right? When you're so exhausted, you really can't enjoy this alpine lake or this gorgeous path because you have to keep moving. That's the downside of a through hike, is that you do have to be on a schedule. It's not completely carefree. So the whole time I was making notes, come back to this place, come back to this place, come back and spend time. So I'm looking forward to just peppering the future with trips back to the PCT for more lingering stays. And I'm a barista and will be working on a farm next summer because again I want to be outside. That's the excitement of my life right now.
The exhaustion reminded me of the fact that I don't think I've slept better than on the trail. You just physically push yourself to the point that sleep is so nice. And just a side note, but low light I think was definitely those couple of days in Washington, compounded by the fact that Gut Hooks was telling us that the next couple of days were going to be these beautiful views, and we were stuck in the rain and clouds and didn't see a lick of it. But on the flip side, Washington was also my favorite state, partially because when the clouds did break and they were still there, in some of the photos we saw or had on the slideshow, it is absolutely stunning. And so I would love to go back and do Washington again. Just to see it and just sit on top of a mountain and watch the clouds for a day. So yeah, Washington turned out to be kind of the high and the low of the trip for me. And currently just looking for work, kind of like Emma, being stubborn and not wanting to go back to retail, and so trying to find a way that I can balance doing more adventures like this with work life and real life, trying to find that balance.
Yeah, me, my highlight started with a low light. This was actually just right away. I had a really low moment, and then probably the best day of my life. Yeah, best day of my life to this point for sure. There was just a section, like it was day 3, there was just a section where I was really feeling the pain. I'd never done anything like this before, and I didn't prepare like physically. I was that month and a half, you know, preparation. So I had a month and a half to get ready for this thing, and that's my fault. But yeah, it turned out, it got to the point where I had so much pain that I was considering, you know, taking some time off like right away. And for me, that kind of felt like, you know, maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe I can't do this. And I don't really know, but I kind of just got the feeling that, you know, I'm out here, I might as well just like try to keep pushing through this. And all that pain actually turned out to be kind of just a mental thing. And you know, after talking with some people and some really, really supportive people that I was hiking with, people that I'd just met, I had kind of gotten over that, and I pushed through a lot of the pain, and I literally had the best day of my life on trail after that, because I just realized that I overcame this, and it's a lot more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing. So that was a powerful moment for me. Yeah, and it was kind of just, that kind of set the tone for the rest of the trails. It was really nice. And then right now, I work outside. I love it. Before this, I worked in an office, and yeah, so I'm being stubborn as well, and I'm not going back to the office. I make snow. Yeah.
Oh, that's you.
I make snow, and yeah, I love it, and I don't really know what is next, what's after this winter, but I'd like to keep traveling and probably hike another trail like this.
So unfortunately, we are up with our time.